Welcome, Buff fans, to the latest BuffZone podcast. I'm Brian Howell. Please be joined by my colleague Pat Rooney. And Pat, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, Mr. Howell. How you doing?
Good. I got the pumpkin hat on, and no kids. My kids are too old to go trick
Yeah,
or treating. Yours are not. Are you going trick or treating tonight?
mine are in the thick of it, and yeah, gonna bust out the old school football gear to dress up, walking around the neighborhood, get my get my eye black going, and yeah, my kids are they're all about. Actually, just came from their party at school. They had a party last night. We got way too much candy around the house, so I'll bring you some maybe on Saturday.
Please don't. My wife's out of town, and I've only got one kid here, and he's 15 and going to hang out with his friends tonight. So I'm debating even turning the porch light off so that little rascals don't come to my door. But maybe I'll at least hand out candy and I'll have all the leftovers that'll be sitting in our house for a while.
Brian Howell, the Grinch who stole Halloween.
That's right. I may hand out candy. They put on the World Series game, and we don't get a whole lot of trick-or-treaters anyway at our house, so it's probably about a dozen doorbell rings I'll get. So
Our
yeah,
neighborhood's pretty fun. So,
yeah.
and Friday night, I'm expecting it to be more so. So I'll tell you all about it on Saturday.
I can't wait. Well, we'll see each other on Saturday because the Buffs have a big football game. Facing Arizona at Folsom Field, 5 o'clock. It's supposed to be on FS1, but we'll see what happens with the World Series. If the Blue Jays win on Friday night, the game will be on Fox for those that are tuning in and not going to be there. But regardless of what TV channel it's on, Pat, this is a big one for the Buffs. I mean, they're obviously coming off a disastrous game in Utah, 53-7 loss that. Um, it probably put all of their flaws on display, but at the same time was also uncharacteristic. This team has not looked like that up to this point.
Yeah, not this year for sure. And for me, and I wrote a little bit about this in the extra points column earlier this week, that the part to me that was kind of an eyebrow raiser wasn't so much the score, and the score was awful. Don't get me wrong, and the numbers were awful. All of that was just awful. But for me, it went beyond that. It's Coach Sanders and kind of chirping at Robert Livingston on the sideline. It's two of your best receivers going through various suspensions for being late, getting back from the bye week, and then that aspect of it. You had 2 weeks to get ready for this after your biggest win of the year, your best performance of the year. You have 2 weeks to get ready, and you come out, and that's your showing. All of that stuff is what made me think it was the worst showing of the Deion Sanders era for all 3 seasons. They had some ugly losses a couple years ago, but they have, no Travis Hunter aside, this is supposed to be a better team. Even Coach Sanders told us all summer and in the offseason, this is going to be a better team top to bottom, in terms of balance and versatility than it was with a team that was top heavy in talent with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. We certainly did not see that at Utah, and to me, that's the part of it that made this, such an ugly loss. The numbers aside, just the kind of complete systemic breakdown that we saw on display was really surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, and really the only two blowout losses they had 2 years ago at Oregon, at Washington State. I was telling people in the press box the other day, those were at least against Bo Nix and Cam Ward. This was against Bird Ficklin, who is a talented young man, and he might wind up being a really good quarterback for Utah. But he's a true freshman making his first start, not a senior Bo Nix, and he was I think a fourth or fifth year senior at Washington State, Cam Ward. So yes, that aspect added to it as well. That this happened against a backup quarterback.
Yeah, and you go back to the two losses you mentioned from 2 years ago. Travis Hunter didn't play in that Oregon game, and by
Yeah,
the time they got to Washington State, I believe it was the next to last game of the year. They didn't have anything to play for. The Buffs didn't, and Shedeur Sanders was completely beat up after playing behind that line all season. The next week was the one game he missed in the finale against Utah.
yeah, he got
Um,
he got he got knocked out early in that Washington State game.
Right. So, to me, there's other aspects. Saying that Buffs team was out of bowl contention at that point as well,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, which should be noted. So yeah, you take all those aspects into the equation, and to me, that's why it was such a bad showing at Utah. And now the question is, can they get it turned around with a couple games that on paper seem a lot more winnable, especially this weekend at home against Arizona.
yeah. And you and I were talking before we started this. I mean, they got a 3 game stretch here coming up that um, is very winnable, and even more so now with news this morning that Arizona State quarterback Sam Levitt is out for the year. That makes, I think, the hardest of these 3 upcoming games a little easier. You got Jeff Sims that is probably going to be the starter. Jeff Sims, who we saw him when he came here with Nebraska, and he was kind of a turnover machine that day, but he hasn't really done that well since leaving Georgia Tech several years ago. And so the opportunity is there, Pat, for this team. I know they got to do it one at a time, but the opportunity is there for this team to go win 3 straight, get to a bowl game.
Yeah, obviously you have to do it one at a time. Obviously, it's a lighter schedule, if you will. I don't know if that's the best phrase for it, but a more forgiving schedule in November than what they face in October. And I'll ask you what you think the keys are for this week. But for me, it's all mental. How do you
Yeah.
shake off
Yep.
the Utah game? Everything. It's on. The Buffs should be able to move the ball against Arizona. Arizona's run game on offense hasn't been great. Obviously, the Buffs have one of the worst run defenses in the country, but Arizona has one of the least productive run offenses in the Big 12. Now they do have a good quarterback. That's going to be a challenge for the Buffs, and they've played better at home. The Buffs have. So, I feel like it's all mental this week more than it is physical on X's and O's. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we could break down a whole lot of X's and O's, but I think none of it matters if this team is not mentally, recharged after this last week and ready to go. And there are things you can look at on paper and say, yeah, I like the Buffs in this one, or I like Arizona in that one. But I agree with you. It totally comes down to how is this team mentally, and if they're ready to go and they're looking to put last week behind them, I think they win the game. I think they're a very similar team to Arizona. There's nothing to me about Arizona that's scary. Noah Fafita is a good quarterback, but look, I think they played 5 teams against Power Four or games against Power Four conference teams, and they've only scored more than 28 points once, and that was against Oklahoma State, which you could argue right now is barely a Power Four team. They're arguably the worst team in the Power Four this season, so that's the only time they scored more than 28. The Buffs have not scored more than 24 against a Power Four opponent, so. These are not offensive juggernaut teams, and the Buffs aren't really scary to Arizona. I don't think Arizona should be scary to the Buffs.
Exactly. And, the Buffs have been better at home. I don't think the Buffs are maybe as good as the team that went toe to toe against Georgia Tech in the very beginning of the year, but nor do I think they're as bad as what we saw on Sunday night. Sometimes to use Coach Sanders as for if they did that. I do like the Buffs' chances this week. They've played better. I think the Buffs will come away with this one. I think it'll be a bit of a grudge match. I'm saying 27-20, kind of that low scoring ish a slugfest. I don't think it'll be a blowout either way, but I think the Buffs find a way to get the job done at home.
Yeah, you said 27-20. I've got 27-24. So I'm right there with you. And to me, this is one, if you're playing it in Tucson, I probably give the edge to Arizona. But the fact that it's in Boulder, I give the edge to the
Sure.
Buffs. And yeah, this is big because if you don't win this one, Pat, I think that you could really go for see this team go to a tailspin here. But if they win it, again, next week you go to West Virginia. It's on the road. It's a long road trip, but they're not very good. And then you come back for Arizona State, which could be limping into the finish. We'll see how they respond to losing their quarterback. But look, the Buffs are done playing ranked teams. We know that. Arizona State, unless they get hot under Jeff Sims, won't be ranked. When they come to Boulder. So the opportunity is there, and it starts this week.
Yeah, and the other aspect is, usually, and we've seen it a couple times this year, the Iowa State game being a prime example, the Buffs have kind of bounced back a little bit with their backs against the wall, especially when they get a chance to do that at home. So I
Yeah.
like this. I think they'll come out with a little bit more of a crisp and sharper performance this week. But I agree with you on the other side of that. If they do not get the job done this week, it could kind of turn into a little bit of a tailspin down the stretch. But hey, one game at a time, and it's all right there for the Buffs this week.
Yeah, it certainly is. And let's flip the page to a couple other sports. Soccer, big win last night against Kansas. They'll be the number 3 seed in the Big 12 tournament this next week. Had a shot at that number 1, but didn't get the help they needed. But that's a team that could very well go out there and win that tournament next week.
Yeah, they very well could. The top seed TCU, their only loss is against the Buffs this year. So the Buffs have beaten Texas Tech. They have beaten TCU, as I just mentioned. This is a fun team to watch. Hope Leba is having a season for the ages. 19 goals last night as we're talking here. And, but it's been more than just her. Jordanitis is an All-American candidate in goal. There's have a couple other forwards that have had big seasons in support of Hope Leba up front in Jace Holly and Emerson Lane. The midfield has been great. Regan Kotschow coming back home. The Broomfield High standout coming back from Washington State and transferring home has made a huge difference in the midfield. And this is a really well-balanced team. They do have a shot to go out and win this tournament. It begins Monday at 7 o'clock, right at the same time as the basketball opener. So that'll be fun on Monday night. But they play Central Florida in that opening game. And yeah, they could very well win this tournament. But even if they don't, they're set up to do well in the NCAA. They should host beginning, be the following week, the week of the, be around Friday, the 14th or so. The pairings will come out early that week, a week from Monday. So still something to be decided there. But I think even if the Buffs get upset in the first round of the Big 12, they should be set up to host at home at the NCAA. And this is a fun team to watch and one that definitely has a chance to advance next to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and volleyball obviously having a strong season, they continue to play well.
Exactly. They picked up a tough 5-set win on the road the other night. Strange timing on the non-conference game at Northern Colorado, but they're back home this Saturday. And then next week I believe it is a big one against Arizona State. That's who they're chasing in the Big 12 standings. Soccer's kind of wrapping up their season now, but volleyball still has some games left. If you have a chance to get out and see them at the event center, you should do so. It's another team that's been really fun to watch, and another team that's kind of barreling toward that NCAA tournament. And then, as you mentioned, we got hoops coming up on Monday.
Yeah.
The men's team, easy for me to say, opens on Monday night against Montana State. I'm really looking forward to seeing these guys in action. Obviously, I've been out at practice quite a bit in the preseason. I don't know how much better. I don't think they'll finish last like they did last year, in the Big 12. I don't know if they're a top 10 team in the Big 12. I do think they're going to be a heck of a lot more entertaining to watch, and I think they're going to be more competitive. I think this freshman class is something to build around. It remains to be seen if you can kind of keep them and all that. We got to see how the season plays out. But I think they have a lot more peace with it. I think they're going to have a chance to compete physically better in the Big 12 than they did last year, for sure.
Yeah, and women's basketball starts next Thursday. They got New Mexico at home, and I had a chance to check out their exhibition against Mines, which wasn't a contest. I mean, it was 87-24, I think it was, and Pat, it was 51-10 at halftime, and then with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it was 75-10. So they held Mines scoreless throughout the entire third quarter. But it's one of those things. It's hard to take a lot out of a game like that. But one thing I did take out of it, they've got some really good freshmen on this team and a couple of transfers that are going to make a pretty big impact. This is going to be a fun team to watch. I think it's a more cohesive team than what they had last year. I think it's going to be a more physical defensive team, probably a better rebounding team. They got a couple of freshmen that will get in there and scrap for rebounds. So I think this is going to be a fun team to watch, and it starts next Thursday. You'll be covering that one because I'll be on a plane Well, I'll be in Pittsburgh. I'll be just landing in Pittsburgh as I get ready for the Buffs game at West Virginia next week. But it's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, looking forward to it. First week of hoops, and we're into November. There's always a lot going on in November. We've talked about it before, and even more so this year. You're going to have NCAA tournament teams for soccer and for volleyball. Barring something crazy happening, but I imagine NCAA tournament bound for both teams, and not just squeaking in. Both these teams can do damage in the NCAA tournaments in each of their NCAA tournaments, and always looking forward to getting hoops going. 2 games this week. There'll be another game next Saturday afternoon for the men after the football game kind of wraps up in West Virginia in the afternoon at the Advent Center against Eastern Washington. So time to get rolling, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, in November, it's always busy, but it starts on Saturday with the Buffs playing Arizona at Folsom Field, and I'll see you out there at Folsom. Uh, don't bring any candy; save that for your kids, and enjoy Halloween tonight.
At the time, thanks for listening.